Hey guys, it's Pastor Tom, and I just want to take a little bit of time to talk with you. I haven't done an online video in this format for a while. Have kind of taken a little bit of a step back. Wanted to make sure we were just putting stuff out there to put stuff out there, and I wanted to wait until I felt like there was something that needed to be put out. And I'm kind of at that point after the last week and a half of kind of praying about this that I think it's time to put this particular one out. As I want to talk to you a little bit about the status of the church, capital C, little c, TSF, all churches, or majority churches, however you want to look at it. When it comes to the pandemic, when it comes to COVID, I know we're all tired of talking about it and hearing about it, but we have to take times to stop and really consider where we're at this point to make sure that we are making right decisions, and that we're following God in the right ways to make sure that we're making the most out of this time, this season, as the Spirit leads to be the church. And so I had some things I want to talk to you about as I think we're moving into another season. I don't just say that from what I see at TSF and assume that it's happening at all churches. This is what I'm hearing with conversations with pastors around our community, pastors from around our country through my consulting groups that I work with. When I bring up the stuff that I'm seeing or listen to what they're saying, everybody's kind of like, "Yep, that's where we're at. That's what we're dealing with too." And that's what I want to talk to you about and take that out of that pastor conversation into the church conversation, just as everybody together, because I think we need to be aware and go from there. So I remember early on in this time, probably about a month or 2 months into it, is when people started sharing out memes and comments on Facebook about being in prayer for your pastors. They had never pastored through a pandemic before. They're not going to make anybody and everybody happy with decisions they're making, and probably stressed out, maxed out, overwhelmed. And folks from our church shared that as well, and I so appreciate it. I really do. We need those prayers all the time. With the ministry that we do, I know other pastors who have been encouraged by that kind of coming together and praying over us as well is so needed. Please never, never, never stop that. But I'm going to kind of be honest with you, just from my standpoint, those early days didn't feel that anxious and overwhelming as what some people might think it did. And again, I'm only speaking for myself at this point. There was a lot of quick moves that had to happen to take things online, like Sunday morning or Wednesday night Bible studies or kids ministry, youth group. There's a lot of things that just needed to happen. That were just kind of common sense administrative type things, that we had to go from enjoying being face to face to doing phone calls, just talking to people and seeing how they're doing and what's going on with them, and keeping connected with the limited tools that we had. It's not the same, but we knew what we had and went with it. And you had to be innovative in some of the ways you were doing it, or some of the things that we had. But for me personally, it's part of my makeup, it's part of my experience. Even though things look different, there were things that kind of lent themselves to it. So I do appreciate those prayers and needed them, and got guided through there, and they made all the difference in the world. But can I say that now is when I cover those prayers more than ever. Now is when I think pastors need prayers and churches need prayers, because I think this is when we're going to start seeing what those full effects are of what the pandemic's doing with the church and with Christians as a whole. This is really when we start seeing what impact it had and move forward within it. And that's kind of the thing I want to share with you and talk to you about. I think we are moving into a new season, and that would look a specific way at TSF, and we're going to be talking about those things in the future, near future. We're still working on those things, praying about those things, talking to elders about those things and staff about those things. But we're moving into a new season overall that is good to bring to the forefront. I think when this all happened, and everything started to get shut down, and certain governors, to be honest, our governor, I think, I'm not going for Republican or Democrat here. I just overall, I think he guided things and whatnot, but he didn't really put too much on the church. It wasn't like some other states where they said we weren't allowed to meet, um, or we're not allowed to sing, or those type of things. Um, but nonetheless, when those challenges came up, I think it really brought everybody together, and there was a big momentum within the church that we're all in this together, and the church matters, and community matters, and we're going to fight for, we're going to talk about, we're going to dig into what matters. And we came together. I think, as I talked to a lot of churches, while there were still struggles, you did see new ways of people coming together financially. You did see new people come together community-wise with some new commitments and leaning into some things, even if it had to be over Zoom instead of face-to-face. We had this, we're all in this together mentality. But where we're at now, as things start to wear off and the pandemic's lasting longer than we thought that it would in many ways. As I don't know about you, I think when we stopped having Sunday morning gatherings for a season, I thought, okay, we'll get through this in a couple months or whatever. And I remember planning my August vacation just to have a relaxation with my family and celebrating birthdays. Once this pandemic thing's done, we're going to need a break. It's still going. It's impacting our world. It continues to impact our world, and it seems like we've kind of lost our edge of all being in this together. And some other things are starting to come through that I think are challenging, and I think some people are pulling away, and I think some people are quitting. And I think there's some different facets that this is going to have on churches as a whole. I was just talking to a friend of mine this morning. I don't really know what TSF looks like. I mean, it's easily defined 7, 8 months ago, but I think it's going to take another 6, 8, 12 months to really find where we landed, who's in, who's moved on, what does this look like now? So it's just a very odd time. And with this time we're going into, the reason why I think it's so hard is because I think it doesn't feel the same way as it used to, and Satan is moving within that, and trying to get people to pull back, and we're not in this anymore together. So let me talk about some of the things I'm seeing generically. I'm not going to talk about any one particular person. Everything I'm talking about here, as far as the general point, I'm hearing across the board in many different churches, many different environments. So I'm not trying to beat up anybody in particular, as much as bring it to the forefront so we can think about it, pray about it, and see how our lives are matching up to that, and to see if it makes sense. So let's talk about some of the realities we see right now in this moment as we're going into this part of the season. I shared some statistics with our church from USA Today, and it's been about a month or so, and so things are changing really fast right now. So I don't know what the numbers look like today. I'm not even sure if I have 100% the right numbers. I'm kind of going off my impression, my memory, but I'm pretty certain it was this, that basically, when you look at everybody in the United States in their lifestyle before the pandemic and after the pandemic, that 80% of Americans are back out into the community, going to restaurants. They won't go to movies at that point. They're just reopening. Sports are reopening, but they're going to Target, Walmart. They were going to the mall. That they were getting back into community. And 20% still had physical situations or just natural concerns themselves to not step back in to community at that point. The 80% that stepped back in and 20% were still pulled back because of the pandemic. Understandable. And just before anybody gets mad at me, that 20%, again, just understandable. Those people that are high risk, those people that have high concern, we get that. None of what I'm about to talk to you about is for you. That's coming in a future season. It's not that season now. I've got buddies of mine that I want you to stay home, please, because of the situation that you're in and the pandemic stuff that's going on around us. But the concern comes in here. 60% of those who were active in church before the pandemic have come back. 60% of those who were active before it come back. In other words, we're seeing within this national number about 20% gauge of people that are back in community within the world, but not plugging back into church and saying, well, it's because of the pandemic and I'm just watching online at home and for these different reasons that's going on. That's a challenge. That's not good. And I want to explore some of the reasons I'm hearing for folks to be in that that boat. Now, to be honest, again, if I personalize it to TSF, I would say we're about 50% instead of 60%. So somewhere between 20-30% of people are not plugged back into church community as being together. Again, some people should be online, absolutely, but being together and making steps to come back together. Here's some of the things I'm hearing. One is just out of the habit, I'm comfortable at home. I don't think anybody says it that boldly and that directly, but that's what it boils down to as I talk to folks when I'm on phone calls with people, talking to people in the community, is, again, what's it take, like a month, I think it is, to create a new habit? And here we are, what, 6-7 months into this bad boy? Our habit is watching from home, if at all, if we haven't plugged in altogether. And that's good. I'm glad we have the online option. I'm glad a lot of churches have an online option. I think that this season's been good for online ministry. But online ministry really is created as an outreach to people who aren't involved in church yet, and for that 20% who shouldn't be back yet. Um, I think that's what it should be there for. It should not replace, because what we can do online is give you information. What we can't do online fully, again, we've been trying to band-aid stuff with what we have to work with, but you really can't do community well online. It's when we're together, it's when we're gathered, when we're with each other, encouraging each other, laughing with each other. And it should be more than Sunday morning. It should be throughout the week or through our small groups. And people just maybe have unplugged from that, and they've lost that feeling, and they don't remember that to the extent where they drive back to it. It's convenient to get up at 10 instead of 9 to get a shower. It's convenient to just pull it up on your TV, and it feels good to kick up your shoes and just kind of kick up your feet and just kind of relax and enjoy, and you don't have to fight the kids and all that kind of stuff. But that's not church. It's just not church. And I talk to people that's in that 20% all the time that are desiring to be back at church. They just can't do it yet. They miss it. But then there's others of us who can, and sit up away from each other and put on masks while we come in and go out, and wash our hands. We can do all that, but we just don't remember what it was like, I guess. I don't know, but we're just missing it. And you're comfortable at home. It's time to leave home. It's time to be back in community with each other. This is a big challenge that a lot of people are feeling, and don't really necessarily feel like it's a challenge. That's why we bring it to the forefront. Here's some other things that I hear is that they're not, for some, you might be coming back to church on Sunday mornings but still find this, but just doesn't feel the same when it comes to relationships and community. We're a relational church. We're a again, we want to build a community. That just doesn't happen online, and quite frankly, it just doesn't happen just by coming on Sunday mornings. It comes by investing into other people's lives, inviting them to have coffee, because we're allowed to do that now, inviting them to come over to the house to watch a movie and sit on 2 different couches. I mean, there's ways we can still do that, but it feels like at this point that we miss the community, but we're not feeling the community, even though we start going back to church on Sunday mornings, or maybe we haven't at all. And I don't feel like I have any friends there that I talk to out the week, or it seems like everybody else is hugging and getting along with each other, but no, I don't hug people, and I get that. I mean, community is different. We're a faith that really leans into going and telling people to come, or saying come and see, in a season that says don't come close to me and I'm not going anyplace. It takes us stepping out of our box and taking some time to invest into relationships with others to be able to have that kind of relationship that we feel that we're dwelling. But as I believe that Satan's on a lot of people just like, that works for everybody else, it just doesn't work for you. And that's where perseverance comes in, as well as power and peace as well through the Holy Spirit. But I'm seeing a lot more of that right now. I think things are sharper sometimes at this point in the season. I'm sure you would relate and agree with me that when you're having a conversation by text, that it can get a little more heated, or get a little bit more strained because you're not there face to face and you're not connecting with each other and seeing each other's facial expressions or laughing at this moment, and the other person on the other side is like, I didn't see the laugh. I just think you're upset, that type of things. When we're away from each other, things get sharper. And a lot of times, whenever there's a void, we fill it with negativity instead of positivity. Quite frankly, I think that's normal for everybody. And so I think right now that there's a lot stronger likelihood of someone maybe watching the sermons on Sunday morning for a long period of time and be like, that guy's kind of a joke, because we're in the scripture, and sometimes it pushes and sometimes it prods, and sometimes it's easy to get more upset, maybe with the teaching or something that the worship leader said or something that somebody else had said, because we're not together and we don't have that connection right now, and it's easier to pull away from each other. And it's not just Sunday morning church. I'm seeing it online. One of the things I love about our church is that our people can have very different opinions. You can be right wing, left wing. You can be wherever you want in the middle of things when it comes to things that are not, theological. We'll make sure you match up to the word. But we can have different ways of looking at this life. And some folks in our church are like far right, far left, and they put things out on Facebook, and we've always been able to have, just say with the extreme, a far right person put a far right thing, and the far left person go, but I love you. I disagree with you wholeheartedly, but I love you. That was a little sharp, but I love you. And I think we're losing that I love you part because we're not together. It's been months. And we're not together, and so we lose that connection. We lose the hugs on and the phone call and the life together aspect of things, and it makes things sharper and easier to pull away from each other. And you might say, well, yeah, okay, all this stuff makes sense, but these things always happen. Those type of things. Right now, where we're at. I see it at a heightened level. I see it from this standpoint too. We have people who have been plugged in this whole time and have been serving and volunteering and pulling more than their weight because we only have a certain amount of people back. So they're doing extra time in the kids' bar ministry or in the nursery or worship team or whatever the case may be. And they're tired. They're tired. It's been several months of carrying an extra load on your shoulders, and they're tired, and it's almost like, well, what's it worth? Nobody else is, half the people that I used to see aren't here anymore, and what are we talking? It's just a season where we're unplugging from the we're all in this together standpoint, and I really think it's a season where God's starting to call the church forward together and be stronger together. And of course, and I will say this too, and I have heard this across the board as well, that also not just impacts who's involved in the church, but who's supporting the church. And so we're starting to see, in the past, maybe some areas of financial support actually move forward as we all come together has now started to fall apart again. And we're starting to see trends of a lack of support financially, which impacts church ministries and impacts pastors as well within the calling of what God calls them to do full-time in their life. So, I think, like I said, we're going to see and start defining what TSS is over the next several months. I think we're going to start defining what the church looks like in this nation during this next 6, 7, 8 months. I think, in all honesty, I'll give or take a little bit on this. It just continues to fall out that we're going to be about 20% down in volunteers and finances by the end of this season. I believe that as far as what we know now to that point, there's going to be loss. I don't think some people are going to pull back out of some of these mentalities and pull away. Some are even probably annoyed at some things I've said in this video. But I do believe that there's going to be prayerfully renewal in their lives, and then also renewal within the church and the church as a whole in some new ways that we have yet to expect. Now, in our church, we've been praying this prayer, and we've been praying for a year and a half, and I think that this season plays right into what God is doing. We've been praying, build up, prepare the road before us, and remove the obstacles from in front of your children. We don't know what that looks like. We're not saying, hey, let's do this so we can get everybody on board and have some capital campaign to make hundreds of thousands of dollars to build a new church building. That's not been it. It's just, God, seriously, build us up. Build us up just spiritually in discipleship and as a church and for whatever you're preparing before us, we don't need to have it defined, just whatever you have before, and then remove those obstacles. As we make new choices and as you lead us and as you move in miraculous ways, remove those obstacles so we can follow that path. And I think this is just part of that. I think he is building us up, and I think that he can use the pandemic to build us up when Satan is trying to tear us away. And I think that there's a road prepared for us. I don't know what all the details look like yet. I'm starting to see more and more glimpses of what it is. There's been dreams, interpretation of dreams over this, conversations coming together in such a way that you can see God moving. And then we need to have those obstacles removed. And these are just calling out some of the obstacles that I think Satan's trying to use to keep us from that. So what is your part within that? I just asked you to consider what I said. If it's not for you, maybe you're part of that 20% and none of this applies to you, throw the whole thing away. Stop praying over yourself and me and the church. Please, I beg you of that. If you are part of the 50% that has been coming back around, and some of you guys are going to the Wednesday night Zoom meeting, and some of you guys are looking forward to youth group coming back, and some of you guys have your kids back in the kids ministry and people serving the kids ministry. Awesome. This isn't for you. I'm glad you just kind of know what we're dealing with as a family, as a whole. But for others of us, I pray you remember that you love Tom and you give grace to Tom, and you consider some of these things just between you and God. See what he says about it. See what he has for you there. Listen, I think September 20th is going to be a big day for us. And I'm going to talk to you more about that in time. I've got some more talks I want to do with the elders. There's some more praying that we're doing over it. I had a great conversation with a buddy this morning that I think kind of spoke some thoughts and some things coming out of that, and some things that God brought confirmation to. I think Mike and I are going to meet Friday about some things. Looking forward to that. I'm meeting with Audrey about the kids ministry this Saturday. There's a lot of stuff. We're really looking at everything right now. We need your prayers over it, because I think with this new season, things are going to look a little different. We got to find that as the Spirit reveals this path, and we do our parts. So I'll talk to you more about September 20th. I'll talk to you more about this next season as time goes on. But please, right now, will you be praying? Will you be praying for me, the elders, the staff, the church, for yourself, for your family? Where do you fit into all this? Will you act? If you're not part of that 20%, will you come? If you are part of that 20%, and come to get back into the habit, get back into the community. If you're part of 20%, still please touch base. And stay with us on Facebook Live. Give me a call. I look forward to calling you. Let's keep in touch with each other until this gets to a place where you are open to being able to come back. Absolutely. But please don't stay in that 30 to the 40% of folks that are going out and staying home from the church. We need each other. We need each other. Please be in prayer for the finances of the church and the ministry of the church. There's some new things that God is raising up that's going to take some financial faith steps. We need you guys to be a part of that financial faith step. And so there's a lot of conversation to come. But right now, pray and show up either in-house or online. Okay, that's my thoughts. If you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, you're mad at me, whatever the case be, Tom at tsflife.com. Start a conversation. Love you guys. Talk to you soon. Be blessed.